goes a sight from my soul. There goes a sight, there goes a sight. Now there goes a sight from my soul. There goes a sight from my soul. There goes a sight, there goes a sight. There goes a sight from my soul.
Welcome back to the garage, guys, and this is a new year, 2017, and I want to thank each and every single one of you guys for hanging out with me through this build. I feel like we've made quite a bit of progress over the last few episodes, and it's going to be a lot more progress still to go because we still have a lot of work to do. So, anyhow, on that note, man, let's just get right to it. I have everything all set up on the side of the house, ready to start sanding the doors and everything down, and enough talk, more work, let's go. Alright guys, I'm gonna start today's video off with showing you guys a little bit about like block sanding. Alright, I have the first door already finished, and I'm gonna use this second door here to kind of demonstrate to you guys basically how to block sand. So if the whole do-it-yourself or how-tos and stuff doesn't really interest you, then go ahead and fast forward to this time that I post here on the screen. Anyhow, now you guys are aware that we already have the primer put down on the two doors and on the rear hatch. Now when you're sanding, because you have to sand those surfaces now and get them prepared for paint. Now you can't just go and spray the paint on here because it's not going to stick, and obviously this primer, it's such a thick primer, it comes out so heavy it leaves like an orange peel. Alright, and you want to sand that out because you don't want an orange peel effect in your paint job. Unless that's your thing, then don't sand it out. I don't know. Let's say this first line that I draw here, that represents the door. Okay, now this right here is the layer of primer that we have over the door. Now the outside surface of it has that orange peel effect to it, and this right here is the actual thickness of the primer that's on there. And that's the reason why, if you look at the previous video when we're priming these, I told you guys I wanted to make it extra thick on these large flat surfaces. This is the reason why right here, because now I'm going to go back and block sand. I want to get everything nice and smooth. So when I'm block sanding, what I'm actually trying to do is knock through that bumpy surface of the primer to where it's nice and smooth. So what we end up with is a nice smooth area. Okay, now let's say I'm gonna redraw this. Let's say that my primer wasn't as thick and it was more something like this. Okay, if I didn't do as many coats as I did, now whenever I go to sand through the primer and get a flat surface, I'm going to be really close to what we just primered over, and it's kind of useless anyhow. Now when you go to sand, whether it's a door or the rear hatch or whatever body part on the car that you're working on, whenever you go to sand it, you don't want to just attack it all aggressively and sand the shit out of it till it's smooth. You want to actually pay attention to the body lines and the curves and the stuff that's in the body of the car. Now what I mean by that is, I mean you have flat surfaces, you have rounded edges, you have body lines. Like the bottom edge of this door, you see you kind of have a flat surface here, kind of a flat surface here. It rounds right there in that area, and at the bottom here it rounds, kind of flares out. So there's quite a bit going on here. All right, now somebody could easily just say, okay, I'm gonna sand this and I'm gonna do this. Okay, now what you're gonna potentially do, I'm gonna make an outline of the door. See, that's the shape of our door at the bottom there. Now what you could potentially do if you just go sanding aimlessly like that is you can create flat spots in your body, in the body lines and in the shape of the body. So when you're sanding and you just go, rah, you know, that large surface of primer that we have on there, the primer is following, okay? Whenever you lay the primer down, it's gonna follow the shape of the surface that you spray it on. Now, if you go sanding like this over this body line, you can easily create a dip like that in the primer. And then you're throwing off those nice, sharp, you know, beautiful lines that are in your car. You don't want to do that. All right, so when you're sanding, you want to pay very close attention to the shape of what it is you're sanding. All right. So again, back to this area of the door. Now, if I'm using my block, which I highly recommend using blocks, because whenever you use a block, the pressure that you're applying when you're sanding, it's more spread out over a flat section because the thickness of this, it's kind of spreading the pressure out more. Whereas if you use something thinner like that, or if you use like just a regular piece of sandpaper, all the pressure is basically where your fingers are at. So anyhow, like whenever you're going over an area like this, what I'll do is like this large flat area, this flat surface here, okay, you can kind of sand it in this direction. You want to kind of make X's. You sand it in this direction, and you just kind of work on this area, all right, until you get rid of that orange peel look. I can't really show you in the camera because you really can't see it, but you'll notice, because whenever you go over it, you'll see the areas. Whenever it becomes smooth and that orange peel is gone, you can tell and you can feel it. So you want to go over these areas till they're nice and smooth, and then down here on this area, you kind of go over this area till it's nice and smooth. And what I'll do is I'll basically sand down here and up here. And once I'm done, I haven't really done anything here, I'll kind of follow that body line and just work that in. Now again, up here in this section where I'm sanding, I'm kind of ending right there. All right, I'm not wrapping over like that because I don't want to flatten out this body line either. So once I finish all this area, I could start up here on this flat surface, okay? Once I've done both areas, I'll connect them. So that throughout the process of sanding, when you're adding a lot of pressure, you're not necessarily doing it on that body line, so you're not going to potentially create flat spots. Okay, and that goes the same for up here at the top of the door. This one's really important because it's more of a aggressive body line. You know, you have a real pronounced line there. Okay, so what I'll do is I'll sand this entire section of this door. I'll sand this entire section of this door all the way up until this line, and then I'll come back and this area right above that, I'll do that separately, paying attention to my body line all the way down. So once I get both areas finished, and you'll be able to tell, you could feel it. You'll feel this is nice and smooth. You'll feel it's nice and smooth here. You run your finger down that body line and you could feel that orange peel in it, okay? So once you've gotten this area and that area where you want it, then you just kind of work them into each other, okay? Gently. Again, you don't want to create any flat spots. And if you notice, I'm kind of applying pressure, letting the pad actually take the shape of the door there, and I'm moving like in the motion with the body of it. So like even on this area, there's this big kind of curve. Whenever I'm sanding, I'll kind of pay attention to the shape of the door, and I'll kind of move like in that shape. I don't know, it's kind of difficult to put it into words, to be honest with you. I'm doing the best I can. So if at the end of this, if you guys still don't really understand what it is I'm trying to explain, then, you know, shoot it down there in the comment section and I'll try to explain it a little better. I know there are quite a few. If you're not comfortable with doing this and you want to make sure you're doing a really good job, you can go off of what it is I'm telling you, because at the same time, remember guys, like, I'm a hobbyist just like you guys, and I'm probably not the best at teaching, you know, but I'm trying my best to share with you guys the knowledge that I've learned over the years, okay? This is, you know, there's a lot of people who probably do things like this differently, because with like anything else, you know, there's probably 10 different ways to do something, you know, and they might get it done, you know, just as well as I do, or even better. But what I'm showing you is how I do it, okay? Take it or leave it. And on large areas like this, to kind of get, like, to sand the whole thing evenly, what I've learned that works best, especially on this curve, see it curves like this, okay? I'm not going to sand this direction, because again, what you could potentially do is create flat spots. So what I'll do is actually sand in the direction of the curve, up and down. You can go at a slight angle like this, and I'll go one way at a slight angle, then I'll come back going the opposite angle. So you're kind of, what you're doing is you're making X's. And I've seen a lot of like instruction videos and stuff where people actually tell you to sand up and then down like this, okay, to actually make X's the entire way. I don't have the patience for that, so what I do is I actually go this way one direction, and then I'll come back and do the other side of my X the other direction. And you just continue doing that until your entire surface is all flat. You go over all your flat areas, all your larger areas, and you come back on your body lines and just kind of work those in and get rid of that orange peel until everything's smooth. Once everything is smooth, that's when you're going to go over all the areas that aren't quite as important, like this here. Like, this is going to be all covered up, but I am going to paint that. So anything that you're painting, sorry, my tripod's a piece of crap. Anything that you're painting, even if you're not going to see it, if it's going to be behind something, say behind the mirror, or behind this little panel that goes next to the window, or like this edge right here, it's going to be behind the door handle. Anything that's going to get paint on it, sand it, okay? You must sand it, all right? If you don't, like areas like this, and I'm sure you guys have seen this, areas like in here, if you don't sand that, what you're going to do is we're going to put the coat of paint over, and since that wasn't sanded right there, that paint isn't going to bond with the primer correctly, which will allow for moisture to get between there, and which it'll start chipping. It'll start behind the door handle, but it will spread. It will spread outside the door handle. And if you guys have ever seen cars like up around the window jambs, up around the door handles, or like right next to a fender, things like that, where the paint or the clear coat is chipping away, that's the reason why it's doing that, is because they didn't take a couple extra seconds to sand that. Okay, so anything you're going to be putting paint on, make sure you sand it. And actually, I'll show you why right now. You have to remember that this is not a chemical bond. The paint does not chemically bond to your car. It does not chemically bond to the surface. Now that's different with plastic paints, okay? That's the reason why you have to use plastic specific primers on plastic parts, is because plastic gases, you can't just take any old paint and have it bond to plastic. You have to use a primer that has a certain chemical that when wet, when you apply it to the plastic, it bonds with the plastic, okay? You use the plastic primer on the plastic, and now once that primer dries, now that primer is a surface that the paint is capable of sticking to once it's sanded. Now back to the sanding. When I tell you you want to make sure you sand anywhere that you're going to be painting, this is the reason why. Because it is a mechanical bond, not a chemical bond. Meaning, now if you were to zoom in with a microscope to the scratches, we'll just call them scratches, that you're leaving behind when sanding a surface, okay? Let's say this is the surface. Now you go and put paint over the top. Now that is just paint sitting on a flat, smooth surface, and that has the potential to just chip away. What you want to do is, here's your surface. Now when you go through and you sand it, this is what you're doing, is you're making crevices all the way through the surface, okay? So when you paint it, let me redo that. You're making areas inside the surface for whenever you put the paint down, okay, the paint seeps into those scratches, okay? It seeps in there, so whenever the paint dries, it had something to actually go into, dry, and bond with the area, okay? Now, if you just, this is a fucking mess. I think you guys are smart enough to understand what it is I'm saying. Okay, if you just put the paint down on a nice smooth surface, like imagine it like glass even. If you were to put paint on glass, what does it do? Once it dries, you can kind of pick at it and it chips off and it pulls away because it wasn't able to actually bond. It wasn't able to actually bond to the glass. Now, on a surface that you're painting on your car, when you sand it, that's what you're doing, is you're giving it something to seep down into and actually bond. So, moral of the story here is make sure anything that you're going to be painting, anything that's going to get paint on it, if you don't want paint failure later on down the road, 6 months, a year from now, see little areas chipping, make sure you sand it. Okay? That's all I want to tell you. Now, back to sanding. What I'm going to do is I'm going to get this door done. I'm going to get the rear hatch done, finish sanding them, get them blown off and ready for paint. Oh, that's next, after I get this sanded. So
I think a fall angel just walked by. I think a fall angel just walked by.
I think it's all angels just walk by. There goes a sight from my soul.
So here's another area to pay attention to, guys. Now, if I put my block on here, that really makes that stand out. You see how this bottom section of the door has that nice curve to it? Well, obviously my block is flat. I don't want to just sand like this, because what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna flatten this out and I'm gonna put lines up here in the body, okay? And it's kind of difficult really to do this in this motion and keep it nice and even. So what I'm gonna do here is I'll grab my block up here at these corners and squeeze it. And you see how it makes it form that shape? That's just another area that, like I said, you don't want to just get into it and sand the shit out of it. You want to pay attention to the body on your car, and because every area of the body is going to be different, okay? So in this area here, that's what I'm doing, is I'm squeezing my block and giving it that rounded shape so I can run through there and get a nice, even, flat surface. It comes out beautiful, man. Okay, now obviously after the whole door is sanded, I want you guys to not forget about the edge right here. This little skinny edge right here that you always see all those little chips and everything on everybody's cars. Now when you're sanding, you don't want to do this. You don't want to do that, okay? You want to, what you'll be doing is rounding it, and by the time you're done and it's finished painted, and it just looks like crap whenever you do that, because you end up rounding the edge. Now what you want to do is, when you're sanding the body, is always keep this flat. You can go over, keep it flat. Don't ever do this, okay? Always keep your sanding block, your sanding pad, whatever step you're on, You don't want to round the edges like that. But once you're done, you do want to go around and hit the edge flat. Okay, I'm holding it flat here, and I don't ever round the edge when I'm sanding the face of the door. Okay, you don't want to want to do that. You do this, and then you do this. Cool? Cool.
There goes a sight from my soul.
Hey, real quick, there's one more thing that I wanted to show you guys with block sanding, and I call this shaping the body. Now, this is a trick that I've seen other people use. I haven't really done this a whole lot myself, but there is a method that you can do to kind of get a little bit more to protect your body lines and to get a little bit more of an aggressive body line. This body line, obviously, you're not going to see in this case because this one is right below the side molding that goes on the door, so you're really not going to see it. But this is the best body line that I have on the door to really demonstrate this with you guys. So what you can actually do is take a roll of tape and mask off that body line, the side that you're not sanding quite yet. Run that tape down the body line, and then what you're going to do is you're going to sand on this side of the body line. Okay, you'll get this all sanded all the way down up to that tape. The tape is protecting it so you don't knock that body line flat. And then once you're done, you remove the tape. I think you guys can see where I'm going with this. Now what you'll do, get off me. Now what you'll do is you'll tape the opposite end, the side that you just finished sanding, okay? You'll tape that side all the way down, and then you'll sand on the opposite end of the body line. And what you do there is you create more of a crisp body line, and at the same time you're protecting it so you don't knock it flat. So yeah, anyhow, I forgot to say that, and I just want to throw that in there in case you guys wanted to know. Alright guys, success, man. We got all three pieces, both doors and the hatch, all sprayed. So now the only thing that leaves is what? The fenders, the bumpers, and yeah, the front and the rear little valance pieces. Shit, that's actually quite a bit still. But we're making progress, so let's get in the house. Alright you guys, I'm going to end the episode right here. I want to thank you guys once again for hanging out with me. I appreciate every single one of you. And hey, once again, Happy New Year's, man. Let's remember, set your goals for the year, okay? Whatever it is you're working on, and there's a certain point you want to get to, just set little goals to start accomplishing, and try your hardest to every single day, man. Every day, work yourself a little closer to that goal. You know what I mean? It might not be building your car. It could be getting your GED, catching up in school. Maybe you're in college. Maybe you're working towards wanting to get enough money to finance a new car, or you're working on your bad credit. Now I'm telling you my life story. You know, just whatever goals it is that you have, man. Just every single day, try to work towards that. You know what I'm saying? Like, just remember, nothing's gonna be handed to you. No one's gonna look out for you except for you. So, what I'm saying is, it's not gonna come and just fall in your lap, guys. So if you want something, you gotta work for it. You know what I mean? So let's get 2017 started off right. And once again, I appreciate you guys. Thanks for hanging out, and I love you. See you on the next one. Peace. I don't know if this is just because I have a lot of balls or because I'm a fucking idiot, but it's kind of a rainy day. Hasn't necessarily started raining yet, but it's supposed to start raining anytime soon. So yeah, hopefully this stuff dries before it starts sprinkling. I don't know. I think it's going to.